Welcome back to LexTalk, everyone. Season 3, Episode 6. We are going to get into some really interesting stuff today,
Yeah.
especially for all our listeners out there who are educators or parents or just, big fans of the English language.
Right.
This season, we're exploring how culture and communication kind of, go hand in hand, especially when we're talking about English here in Thailand.
Yeah.
So today, we're going deep, 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 deep on how Thai society really shapes the way people actually use English.
It's fascinating, more fascinating than you might think.
Right. Like, have you ever noticed how different English can sound, let's say in a business meeting,
Yeah.
versus, say, just a casual chat online?
Absolutely.
So before we go any further, I think we should maybe define some terms.
For sure.
What is sociolinguistics, and why should our listeners care about it,
Yeah.
especially in the context of, learning or using English in Thailand?
So sociolinguistics is basically the study of how societal and cultural factors influence the way we use language. It goes beyond just grammar rules and dives into like the why behind why people choose certain words or phrases in different situations.
So it's about understanding the motivations
Yeah.
behind the language choices that we make.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's especially fascinating in Thailand because
Hmm.
Thai society has these very specific cultural norms that play a huge role in how people actually use English.
Can you give us some concrete examples?
One of the biggest factors is this idea of hierarchy and respect. So there's a really deep-rooted respect for elders and teachers and anyone in a position of authority, and this influences how people use English. For example, you might notice Thais using very formal English, even in situations where native English speakers might be a little bit more casual.
It's almost like they're bringing that Thai sense of respect
Yes.
into their English.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a subtle way of showing that they understand those social dynamics at play, and it actually goes beyond just formality, too. The Thai language itself is what we call high context.
High context, what does that mean?
It means that a lot of the meaning is implied rather than directly stated. So it's like you have to kind of read between the lines. And this tendency towards indirectness carries over into how Thais use English.
So it's not that they don't want to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they're expressing themselves in a way that's considered polite and respectful in Thai culture.
Exactly.
Okay.
So instead of saying that's wrong, a Thai person might say something like, I think it's a bit different.
Okay.
Or instead of like a flat out no, you might hear maybe or not sure,
Yeah.
So they're really aiming for harmony and avoiding any potential conflict.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like this cultural dance of politeness.
It is. It really is.
What about all the Tinglish we hear? Does that tie into this too?
Tinglish is a perfect example of this cultural and linguistic fusion. So Tinglish, for those who haven't heard the term, is this really fun, awesome mix of Thai and English that you hear everywhere, from like street signs to just casual conversations.
Yeah. And it's so creative.
Yeah.
And playful. Like you even see it online. Like the other day I saw an influencer. They were like, this style is very chill. But they actually threw in the Thai phrase for this style right alongside the English.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's code switching,
Yeah.
which is incredibly common in Thailand.
Yeah.
And the balance between, how much Thai versus how much English is used really shifts depending on the situation. So like in a formal business setting, you're going to hear more pure English.
Gotcha.
But in casual chats, it's all about that seamless blend of Thai and English.
Could you maybe give us an example of how like a simple phrase might differ in those two settings?
Sure. So let's say you're trying to set up a meeting.
Yeah.
In a formal business context, someone might say, let's schedule a meeting for next Tuesday. But in a more casual setting, you might hear something like, let's have a meeting on Tuesday. Nah.
Yeah.
So they're conveying the same message,
Totally.
but the tone and the use of the Tinglish makes it clear whether it's like a formal exchange or just a casual one.
So interesting. I'm really starting to see how these things that seem very small
Yeah,
actually reveal so much about the cultural influences
exactly.
and how people are using language.
Exactly. It's all connected. And speaking of connections, have you ever noticed how some Thai students are a bit hesitant to speak up in English class, even if they seem to understand the material?
Now that you mention it, yeah, I always kind of assumed it was just nerves
Yeah.
or shyness
Yeah.
about maybe making mistakes.
That might play a role, but there's also a strong cultural factor there too. So in traditional Thai classrooms, there's a big emphasis on respecting the teacher and learning through observation. So Speaking up and like expressing your own opinions directly can sometimes feel a bit uncomfortable, especially in English where those cultural norms might be different.
So it's not necessarily that they lack confidence in their English skills.
Uh-huh.
It's more about trying to navigate these different cultural expectations.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's something for teachers and parents to keep in mind,
Definitely.
especially when it comes to, supporting English language learning.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll actually dive deeper into some strategies for creating that
Good.
supportive and culturally sensitive learning environment in our next segment.
Absolutely.
But before we move on, I want to give a quick shout out to all our amazing listeners. Don't forget to follow LexTalk on all platforms, our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify. We're at LexTalk Podcast.
We love to hear from you.
Yes.
Let us know your thoughts, observations, anything you want to share.
All right, now back to our deep dive. We've talked about hierarchy, respect, even Tinglish. But I'm curious about another big cultural concept, the concept of face.
Yes.
How does that tie into how Thais use English?
Yeah, face is a fundamental concept in Thai culture, and it definitely plays a role in how people communicate, even in English.
So could you maybe break that down
Sure.
for our listeners who might not be familiar with this concept?
So in Thai culture, face basically refers to someone's reputation, dignity, and social standing. So it's all about maintaining harmony and avoiding anything that could cause someone to lose face, which basically means, being embarrassed or losing respect in front of others.
So how does this concept of face actually manifest itself in the way people use English?
You'll notice that Thais often use very indirect language, especially when dealing with sensitive topics or potential disagreements. It's all about preserving that sense of harmony and avoiding any conflict or embarrassment.
I've definitely seen that. Instead of giving a blunt no,
Yeah.
someone might say, I'll try my best, even if it's something they know they can't do.
Right, exactly. It's about softening the blow and saving face for everyone involved.
It's fascinating. It makes you realize how much culture
Mm-hmm.
is embedded in our communication styles. Now, I've heard there's a book
Yes.
called Sociolinguistics in the Land of Smiles that really delves deeper into this. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sociolinguistics in the Land of Smiles, How Thai Society Shapes English Usage, is a really great resource for anyone who wants to learn more about this. It was written by Dr. Sam Maffei, and it's really geared towards language teachers, students, and anyone who's interested in that intersection of language and culture in Thailand.
What kind of insights does it offer?
It covers a really wide range of topics, from the history of English in Thailand to the influence of Thai cultural values on communication styles. And it even dives into specific linguistic features of Thai English
Wow.
and offers some practical teaching strategies for educators.
Sounds like a valuable resource.
It is. It really is.
Okay, so we've talked about hierarchy, politeness, even face. Are there any other key cultural factors that influence how English is used in Thailand?
Well, another big one is the influence of Buddhism.
Okay.
So, as the dominant religion in Thailand, Buddhism's core principles, things like compassion, mindfulness, and non-attachment, actually have a subtle but really significant influence on communication styles.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have necessarily immediately connected Buddhism to English usage,
Yeah.
but it makes sense when you explain it.
It's subtle, but it's definitely there.
Right.
So, for example, that emphasis on avoiding confrontation
Yeah,
and maintaining harmony really aligns perfectly with Buddhist principles.
right. So would you say then that Thai English tends to be more indirect and less assertive as a result of these cultural influences?
Yes, that's a fair observation. You'll often hear Thais using softer language, qualifying their statements, and avoiding those direct disagreements. It's not that they lack confidence or conviction, it's more about navigating social interactions in a way that really prioritizes harmony and respect.
That's really valuable. It helps to kind of reframe
Yeah.
those communication differences
Yeah.
as nuances,
Yeah.
cultural nuances,
Absolutely.
rather than deficiencies in language.
Absolutely. It's all about appreciating that richness and diversity
Yeah.
of communication style.
Across different cultures.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of explored how Thai society influences English, but now I'm curious about the impact of global trends.
Yeah.
So things like social media, pop culture, the internet, they're playing such a massive role in shaping language. I mean, worldwide, not just in Thailand.
Of course.
How are these trends influencing English, specifically in Thailand?
It's a really fascinating two-way street.
Okay.
Global trends are definitely impacting how people are using English in Thailand. But at the same time, Thais are adapting and integrating those influences in their own very unique way.
Can you give us some specific examples?
Well, social media in particular is like this hotbed of linguistic innovation. You see a lot of code switching, like we talked about before, between Thai and English. There's all these abbreviations and internet slang being used, and even the creative use of emojis to convey emotions and kind of add a Thai flavor to digital communication.
It's like a whole new linguistic landscape
Yeah,
is emerging.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's evolving at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
And then you have the influence of Western music and movies.
Yeah.
You hear English slang and expressions borrowed from pop culture all the time. But what's interesting is that those borrowed elements are often given this uniquely Thai twist, either in pronunciation or in how they're used.
So it's not just straight up imitation.
Right.
It's more about adapting those influences
Yeah.
to fit within Thai culture and
Exact.
communication styles.
Exactly. It's a form of linguistic creativity that really reflects that dynamic blend of global and local influences in Thailand.
So interesting. So we've got English in Thailand as this vibrant fusion
Yes.
of traditional cultural influences and these global trends. It's like a linguistic tapestry
It is.
that's constantly being woven and rewoven.
Yeah.
Before we get too carried away with the linguistic tapestry,
Right.
we've got to take a quick pause for a word from our sponsors.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more from our deep dive into the sociolinguistics of English in Thailand.
Welcome back to LexTalk. Before the break, we were talking about this incredible mix of Thai culture and global trends, shaping English.
It's like this amazing linguistic dance, isn't it?
It really is. And this dance plays out in so many areas of life, especially when we're talking about education. We touched upon earlier, how Thai cultural norms can affect how students actually participate in class. But I think there's a bigger picture here, too. How do these cultural dynamics, how do they actually shape English learning in Thailand overall?
That's something that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are really curious about, especially, our teachers, our parents. What are some of the specific challenges that Thai students face when it comes to actually learning English, given all these unique sociolinguistic factors that we've been discussing?
One of the biggest hurdles is this difference between Thai and Western communication styles. So, as we've been discussing, Thai culture really values indirectness, being polite, avoiding confrontation. But in a lot of Western cultures, being direct, assertive, engaging in debates is actually encouraged, particularly in academic settings.
And so it's like something that might be considered good communication in one culture could actually be seen as kind of rude or inappropriate in another.
Exactly. And this can create a real dilemma for Thai students who are trying to master English. They might hesitate to express their opinions very strongly, to disagree openly, or to participate in those kind of back and forth discussions that are very common in Western classrooms.
It's like they're learning a new language and a whole new set of communication rules at the same time.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. And this juggling act can impact their confidence, their willingness to participate, and even how they perceive their own English abilities.
So what can teachers do to help bridge this gap? How can they create a classroom that's effective for learning, but also sensitive to these cultural differences?
First and foremost, it's about awareness. Teachers need to understand these cultural differences and approach their students with empathy and understanding.
It's not about forcing students to conform to a completely different communication style.
Absolutely not. It's about creating an environment where students feel comfortable expressing themselves authentically while also learning the skills they need to navigate different communication contexts.
It's about giving them the tools to kind of code switch effectively, not erasing their cultural background.
Precisely. And there are a few practical strategies that teachers can use. For starters, talk about these cultural differences openly in class. Discuss this concept of direct versus indirect communication, give some examples, help students understand how these different styles play out in different cultures.
It's like giving them a roadmap to navigate these unspoken communication rules.
Exactly. Another useful technique is to incorporate role-playing activities. This lets students practice different communication styles in a safe and fun way.
So they can experiment with being more direct or assertive in certain scenarios without feeling like they're being disrespectful.
Exactly. And finally, it's crucial to create opportunities for students to express their opinions and to participate in discussions, even if they're hesitant at first. That encouragement, that positive reinforcement can make a big difference.
So it's about finding that balance between respecting those cultural norms and encouraging students to kind of step outside of their comfort zones a little bit.
You got it. Now, stepping outside of the classroom for a moment, let's talk about some of the wider trends in English language learning in Thailand. What are some of the key developments that you're seeing?
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. What's happening on a larger scale?
One major shift is this growing demand for English in the workplace. So, with Thailand's economy becoming more and more globalized, being fluent in English is a huge asset.
Which makes total sense. In today's world, English is often the language of, business, tech, international communication.
Exactly. And this demand is leading to a surge in English language learning across Thailand. You see it everywhere, from the tons of language schools popping up to online learning platforms becoming super popular. Even the school curriculum is integrating English at a younger age now.
So English is becoming woven into the fabric of Thai society in a whole new way.
It really is. It's not just like this foreign language anymore. It's seen as essential for like professional success, social mobility.
That shift towards English being crucial for professional, success is really interesting. Are there other trends you've noticed that are kind of shaping how English is being used here?
Pop culture is another big one. We talked before about, code switching and borrowing words from Western media, but it actually goes even deeper than that. Pop culture is influencing not just how people speak English, but how they think about the language itself.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, in the past, English might have been seen primarily as like an academic subject or something that you needed for business. But now, thanks to music, movies, social media, it's becoming associated with being cool, trendy, and globally connected.
It's like English has taken on this new cultural significance. It's not just about practicality anymore. It's also about identity.
Exactly. And this is especially true for like younger generations who are growing up surrounded by this very globalized media landscape. They're using English slang, they're incorporating English words into everyday speech, and they're even creating their own hybrid forms of English that reflect their cultural identities.
They're making a language their own. It's not just something imposed from the outside. It's becoming a part of their self-expression.
Right, they're not just passively absorbing it, they're actively shaping it to reflect their own experiences and perspectives. And this trend is only going to get stronger as technology continues to connect people from all over the world.
It's fascinating to think about how all of these factors are coming together to shape the future of English in Thailand. Where do you think all of this is headed?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think the future of English in Thailand is incredibly bright, but it will definitely require navigating a delicate balance.
The delicate balance. What do you mean by that?
Well, on the one hand, you have these deep-rooted cultural values that influence how people communicate, as we've been discussing. And on the other hand, there's this undeniable push towards globalization and the need for English that's understood internationally.
So it's about finding a way to kind of bridge those two worlds, to be both culturally sensitive and globally fluent.
Exactly. I think we'll see a continued evolution of what we might call Thai English, a variety of English that blends those global influences with that very distinct cultural flavor.
It's like creating a linguistic tapestry with both global and local threads kind of woven together.
That's a great analogy. And I think this evolution will be largely driven by the younger generations. They're the ones who are comfortable code switching, blending languages and embracing new trends.
What role do you see technology playing in all of this?
Oh, technology will be huge. Online learning platforms, language learning apps, social media, these are all making English more accessible than ever before, especially for people, outside of the big cities.
So we might see English learning opportunities becoming more equal, with more people having access to them.
Absolutely. And this increased access could lead to even greater diversity in how English is used and adapted throughout Thailand.
It's amazing to imagine all the different ways that English might evolve in the coming years.
It truly is. It's like an open book, and we're just beginning to write the story. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a quick break to remind our listeners.
Don't forget to follow LexTalk on all platforms. Our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Our handle is @LexTalkPodcast.
And be sure to check out the book we mentioned, Sociolinguistics in the Land of Smiles, How Thai Society Shapes English Usage. It's a great resource if you want to delve a little deeper into this topic. We'll be back in a moment to wrap things up and explore that really exciting future of English in Thailand.
Welcome back to LexTalk. Before the break, we were getting a glimpse into what the future might hold for English in Thailand.
And it's a future that looks pretty bright.
We talked about the balancing act, right, between maintaining those cultural values and embracing globalization.
Right.
I'm curious to hear a bit more about your thoughts on that. What do you see as the key to finding that balance?
I think the key lies in embracing those strengths and those advantages that Thai learners actually bring to the table. Sometimes I think we get so caught up in focusing on the challenges,
Yeah.
that we forget to acknowledge those unique skills and perspectives that Thai learners offer.
It's so true. It's all about looking at the whole picture. What are some of those strengths that you see?
Well, for starters, their deep understanding of Thai culture, particularly that emphasis on respect and politeness and harmony, this is a huge asset in intercultural communication. So while those norms might pose some challenges in certain situations, they're incredibly valuable when it comes to, building relationships and navigating those cross-cultural interactions.
So it's like those cultural values that we've been talking about can actually become strengths in a globalized world.
Exactly. Thai learners are often really skilled at reading social cues, adapting their communication style, fostering that sense of mutual respect, which are essential for effective communication in any language,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
not just English.
It goes beyond just language proficiency.
Yes,
It's about connecting with people
exactly.
on a deeper level.
And beyond those interpersonal skills, Thai learners tend to have a really strong work ethic and a really deep respect for education, which can be, powerful motivators when it comes to language learning.
I've definitely seen that firsthand, yeah.
Yeah.
Thai students are often incredibly dedicated and persistent, in their
Yeah,
studies.
they are. And that dedication combined with their innate cultural sensitivity, it really, really sets them up for success in a world where being able to communicate across cultures is more important than ever.
So it's all about kind of recognizing those strengths and celebrating them and helping learners leverage them to reach their full potential.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that diversity is a strength and not a weakness.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about the social and the cultural influences, but I'm curious about the purely linguistic side of things. Are there any specific characteristics that make Thai English like distinct from other varieties of English?
Definitely. Thai English has developed its own unique flavor, influenced both by the Thai language and by those, global trends.
Give us some examples. What are some of the telltale signs?
Well, one of the most noticeable features is the intonation pattern. So Thai is a tonal language, meaning that the pitch of your voice can actually change the meaning of a word. And this tonal influence often carries over into English, giving Thai English this kind of musical sing-song quality that really sets it apart.
It's like the music of the language is almost infused into the English.
That's a great way to put it. And this can sometimes lead to some funny misunderstandings with speakers of non-tonal varieties of English,
Wow.
who might miss those subtle shifts in meaning.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah. It's a good reminder that even small differences in pronunciation can have a huge impact on how we understand each other.
Absolutely. Another distinctive feature of Thai English is the use of certain grammatical structures that actually reflect Thai language patterns. For example, you might hear Thais using the present continuous tense to describe actions that were completed in the past.
So instead of saying, I went to the market yesterday, they might say, I'm going to the market yesterday.
Exactly. To a native English speaker, that might sound grammatically incorrect,
Right.
but in Thai English, it's perfectly natural. It reflects the way verbs are structured in the Thai language.
It's like those underlying linguistic patterns are actually shaping how English is being adapted and transformed.
Exactly. It really highlights the creativity and the flexibility of language and how it evolves in different cultural contexts.
You mentioned earlier a book called Sociolinguistics in the Land of Smiles that goes into more detail about these features of Thai English.
Yeah.
Could you maybe remind our listeners about that book?
Of course. So, Sociolinguistics in the Land of Smiles, how Thai society shapes English usage. It's a great resource for anyone who wants to dig a little bit deeper into that linguistic side of Thai English. It provides a really, really thorough analysis of those unique features and explains how they've developed over time.
Sounds like essential reading for anyone who's serious about understanding the intricacies of English in Thailand.
I definitely recommend it. It's packed with insights and it's a really fascinating read.
Well, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. From those cultural influences to the linguistic adaptations, it's clear that English in Thailand is this vibrant and evolving entity.
It is. It really is. And it's a testament to the country's ability to embrace both, tradition and change as it finds its place in a globalized world.
We've talked about the challenges, but also about those amazing strengths that Thai learners bring to the table.
Absolutely. Their cultural sensitivity, their strong work ethic, and their remarkable adaptability are such valuable assets in our increasingly interconnected world.
It's inspiring to see how people in Thailand are shaping English to reflect their own unique identities. I have a feeling this is just the beginning of a really exciting journey.
I couldn't agree more. The future of English in Thailand is full of potential, and I can't wait to see what unfolds.
This has been such an insightful and thought-provoking conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure. I hope our listeners have enjoyed this deep dive into the world of English in Thailand as much as we have.
And to our amazing listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this linguistic adventure. Don't forget to follow LexTalk on all platforms, our website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, SoundCloud, and Spotify. We're at LexTalk Podcast.
And if you're interested in learning more about that fascinating world of Thai English, be sure to check out the book we mentioned, Sociolinguistics in the Land of Smiles: How Thai Society Shapes English Usage.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences and any questions you might have about English in Thailand. Keep those observations coming.
Absolutely. Your insights are incredibly valuable to our ongoing exploration of English and linguistics.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep Lex talking. Let's talk. Let's learn. Let's Lex talk.